Okie dokie. I was going to skip this, but then I decided I really haven't shown the cut up version of the Enchantress, so why not give her a roll, right? Here is how I did the supports for her. As you can see, it's nothing really all that much different. You can see some things a little bit better, like on the back of the boot here. You can see how I supported. See how I supported the buckles? I did the same thing to the boots, right? I want them held down nice and strong. This actually is not a part of the Enchantress. This is a prototype for I'm working on like a Raspberry Pi emulator, Game Boy, handheld nonsense. But the buttons weren't quite tall enough, so I just remodeled them and made the buttons a little taller. I might actually give that away at some point, maybe in my Facebook group or something. I don't know how many people are actually going to have a use for it, though. Um, but I'll talk about that handheld thing later. Just mention it because it's in. You can see here, I split up the staff. This is the bottom piece, and I did the same thing, except look, just to hold it, make sure it's held down. I added some supports all around the edges here, and a couple up top. The holes, right? It's so hard to control these. There you go, nice big fat hole in the tenon, which is just going to go right inside that, or that's actually going to go inside that. So it's going to cover up the hole without a problem. The one thing I did a little different on this one is I thought I would try a different position for the head of the staff and see how that came out, right? I put the holes in the same place, right? There's holes in here, holes in there, and a hole in there. But instead of angling it, I just did it flat on the side just to see how it came out. And as predicted, I got some sort of that pillowing effect over here. It's not really a big problem. It's nothing that a swipe or two of a file can't flatten out. But it's just something you got to deal with. So unfortunately, with flat surfaces, unless you put the support so thick that it's almost besides the point, you're going to have a little cleanup to do. So I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would. Recommend that you do it this way. Tilting it on an angle this way is, I think, a bit of a better way to do it. Spinning around, and the Enchantress herself, right? Her upper body is pretty much the exact same thing, right? She's done the same way. The bottom of this, I'm not too worried about because it's going in the top of this part of the staff. A bunch of supports around here. Now this, I did have to take a file to flatten it out a little bit, and you want to make sure that you don't go too far. Just a few gentle swipes will flatten that out, and you're good to go. If you, come on. If you eat away at too much of this, then the calf is not going to fit. So annoying. Right, see here's the bottom or the top of the mating part. So if you file away too much, then it's not gonna then it's not gonna fit. So you got to be careful with that. But that's not too hard. Just a few swipes with a sandpaper or a file to flatten it out is all you need. And everything else is the same. I mean, it's too thick to really see, but I've supported these chains. We've got the loincloth is supported on both sides. I'm trying to see if I can get just a glimpse here. You can see here, this one right here is supported all along that side. This is supported all along that side. And I got the same thing in the front. And it's always good if you have any doubt, just pull the old view from above and go through the layers. That is always your best way to make sure everything's cool. Right? You can see there's a few more supports. There's a lot more supports on that arm, right? I wanted to make sure this whole thing was not going anywhere. Because, like I said before in the other one, these are just waving in the breeze. And until this part of the arm connects to this part of the body, it's not going to be quite as sturdy. So you want to make sure you hold them still. That's, once again, supports your islands and holding the piece firmly to the plate. That's pretty much what you want to take care of. Right? And we go down through. You can see the skull is supported. Did I put the, where did I put the, there's the hole right there on the bottom hole. Where's the top hole? I think it's in the back. Yeah, there it is. And I put a smaller one in this one than I did the other one, but it's fine. As long as, you know, I don't think you want to go too far below 2 millimeters because resin is kind of thick. And a 1 millimeter hole is going to get clogged up by resin and it's probably not going to vent as well. So I like to keep the holes a reasonable size if possible. You don't want to get too big because then you're going to actually have to do more than just fill the hole. You're going to have to sculpt it to make sure it fits the surface that it's in. Like if it's in a rounded surface, it's got to match that round. So it takes a little more effort. Not a lot, but a little more. And my goal is always to make this as easy as possible. But that's just a little look at how I cut up the Enchantress for a smaller bed and how I supported her versus the whole one. Now, I put the cuts in the area of the calf where there's no real detail around it. So you've got some room to get some sandpaper in there, sand everything flat, maybe I'd be careful with a file in this area because it being part of the leg, it's fairly round. And the problem you run in with a file is it's flat. So you run into the risk of putting facets on the leg that aren't going to look natural. So sandpaper are probably the better option here than a file. And these come out nice and flat this way because they're basically flat to the bed. All this detail came out great. And I know a lot of people say to angle stuff, and in most cases I would definitely agree. But I didn't want to angle her because if I angle her backwards this way, then I'm going to have to support the hair. And I didn't want to run into trouble with the supports in the hair. All this stuff is very small, and I was afraid that even if the supports didn't penetrate deeply, it would still pull a chunk of the resin away, and you don't want to have to try to get in there to fix that. It's going to be a very small, tiny space, all of these hair strands. It's going to be very hard to repair. And I purposely did these so you don't really have to support the bottom. I let this one go for some reason. I don't know why, but it's really not necessary to support the bottom of that. You can see the chin is supported the same way because it's basically the same piece, right? Oh, and I started to say you don't want to tilt it back because of the detail in the hair, and you don't want to tilt it forward, right? You don't want to tilt it forward because then the detail in the face and the whole front of the body, you risk losing it. So straight up and down, well, not usually what everybody recommends, worked great for me. And that's really all there is to supporting the cut-up version of the Enchantress. Don't forget, she's live on Kickstarter right now, so go over and get your own copy while you can.